Number 4, Web and Mobile Security Introduction to Fundamental Concepts and Approaches of the Specification, Webification, Sandbox, Permissions, Dialog-based Access Control, Web APIs, and HTTPS cookies, passwords, and alternatives, frequency, software updates, client-side vulnerabilities, and mitigation, phishing, clickjacking, client-side storage, physical attacks, and server-side vulnerabilities, and mitigation. Introduction. Web and mobile security have become a primary means through which many users interact with the internet and computing system. Hence, their impact on overall information security is significant due to the sheer prevalence of web and mobile applications. Converging both web and mobile securities, this knowledge area emphasizes the intersection of their security mechanisms, vulnerabilities, and mitigation. Both areas shares a lot in common and have experienced a rapid evolution in the features and functionalities offered by their client-side applications. This phenomenon, sometimes called amplification, is the driver in modern web and mobile ecosystem. Web and mobile clients apps typically interact with the server-side applications interfaces using web technologies. These second phenomenon, also sometimes called webification, equally affects both web and mobile ecosystem. In 1990s, web and mobile security had a strong focus on server-side and infrastructure securities. Web browsers are mostly used to render and display static websites without dynamic content. The focus on the server side prevailed even with the rises of the early script languages such as Pre1 and PHP. However, web content became more dynamic in 2000s and server-side securities had an address injection attack similarly to the web browsers. Early mobile devices had limited functionalities and were mostly used to make calls or send SMS. Mobile security backed the focus on success control calls and SMS security. Modern web and mobile ecosystems are primary devices. However, the rise of applications and the developed in the recent years, the applications trend results in the millions of apps ranging from the simple flashlighting apps on online social networks, from the online banking apps to mobile and browser-based games. It has also sparked the merging of the technologies and securities mechanisms used in the web and mobile applications. Both ecosystems are typically client-server oriented. Web browser and mobile apps communicated with the backend services, often using web focused technologies. Communications in mostly based on the hypertext protocol HTTP and its secure extension HTTPS. Both web browsers and mobile applications tend to primarily exchange hypertext markup languages, HTML, JAWS, and XML documents, and both make extensive use of the JavaScript programming languages on the server and the client side. Webification describes the conversion of to these web technologies. The sheer amount of applications in modern web and a mobile ecosystem also impacted the software distribution model, which moved away from the website downloads to the centralized applications stores, which allows developers to publish, advertise, and distribute their software and users to download new apps and new app updates. The centralized software distributions had a positive impact on update frequencies and speed for the both web and mobile. This knowledge area focuses on the applications tend to an introduction to core technologies of the webification phenomenon. Figure provides an overview of the entities involved in their interactions. Devs యాప్ స్టోర్స్ యూజర్స్ వచ్చేసి శాండ్బాక్స్ యాప్స్ని హెచ్సిఎంఎల్ వెబ్ బ్రౌజర్స్ని హ్యాక్ చేస్తారు. డెవాప్స్ వాళ్ళు మళ్ళీ వెబ్ సర్వీస్ ఎక్స్చేంజ్ ఆఫ్ డేటా. వెబ్ అండ్ మొబైల్ ఎకోసిస్టమ్ fundamental concepts and approaches. Appification. Over the last 10 years, the rise of mobile devices and ubiquitous internet access have changed the way of software is produced, distributed, and consumed, alternating how humans interact with the computer devices and with the software installed on the devices. While regular internet browsers have been the dominant way of accessing content on the web in the pre-mobile era. The concepts of a specification significantly changed the way of users access content online. The application describes the phenomenon of the moving away from a web-based platform to access most digital tools and media online with the web browser through a mobile applications with highly specialized tiny feature sets. As mobile devices grew to become a primary interfaces for the web access worldwide, the number of app roses enormously over the last decade. There is a app for the everything because the mantra of applied software ecosystem with produce numerous applications for us all sort of the users cases and application errors. Many apps look like a native local desktop or mobile applications. However, they are often web applications that communicate with the backend services, which then outsource the outcome computation and the storage tasks to the client. This shift towards amplification and had a significant impact on the web and mobile security, creating a more security challenges on the client side. The rise of the application also impacted the developer landscape. In the pre-application era, software developed was mostly dominated by the experienced developers due to the more extensive tool and framework supports. The market entrance barrier is lower in applied ecosystem. The rise of citizen developer the application trend attracts many non-professional software developers called citizen developers. Many of them do not have a software engineering education but makes the use of multiple simpler apis and tool available to build the apps for different platforms. The adaptation of easy to use online application generators OAGs to develop, distribute and maintain apps has a negative impact on application security. Generated apps tend to be vulnerable to reconfiguration and code injections attacks and rely on a secure infrastructure. Webification: many of the applications are not native applications written in compiled programming languages such as Java, Kotlin and C++, example for Android apps, and Object-C and Shift for example iOS apps. Instead of they are based on web technologies including server-side Python, Ruby, Java or Java script and client-side JavaScript. In addition to conventional web applications targeting regular web browsers, mobiles web applications are more frequently built using these web technologies. In particular, web applications make heavy use of JavaScript language. Uniform resources locators. Uniform resources locators URLs are core concepts of web. A URL is well formed and fully qualified text string that addresses the identifies a source on a server side. Addresses bars in the modern browser user interfaces UIs are use the URLs to illustrate the remote addresses of a render document. A fully qualified absolute URL string consists of several segments and contains all the required information to access a particular resource. The syntax of absolute URL is schema / credentials at the rate of host is to spot or resource path question query parameter / fragments. First segment optional description indicates the protocol a web client should use a retrieve a source. Common protocols in web are HTTP and HTTPS / dot. Optional indicates a hierarchical URL required by 1245 credentials at the rate optional dot can use a username and passwords that might be needed to retrieve an resource from remote servers. Host white dot specifies the sensitive DNS example Coco org, Kaiwok org. A raw IPv4 example 127.00.1 or IPv6 address example 0.0.0.0.0.1 to indicate the location of the server hosting a resource. To port is to port describe a non-default network port number to connected to the remote server. Default ports are 80 for HTTP and 433 for HTTPS. Slash resource path whiteboard identifies the resources address on a remote server. The resources path from format is built on the top of the Unix directory semantics. Question query parameters. Black dot possesses a non-hierarchical parameters to a remote resources such as the server-side script input parameters hash fragment provides the infrastructures for the browser. In practice, it is used to address an HTML anchor element for in documenting navigation.